There we go.
This is ridiculous. Okay.
A little bit.
So how do you start a podcast? What does one say to start a podcast?
I'd say we're started.
Oh, are we started?
Yeah, let's start it. Why not?
They're gonna be able to hear Cleo.
That's okay. We got a cat with us.
Yeah.
All right. So this is a fun little test project we're gonna do. True with podcasting.
Yeah.
Adventures.
We'll see how this goes. There's a lot going on everywhere.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we like to we want to teach people, I guess, how to have a kick-ass wedding.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
Are we good with language, you think?
Yeah. I mean, I'm cool with language.
Okay. Let's do it. Sorry if you don't like to hear cussing, but we're gonna cuss probably.
Sorry, Mom. Just kidding.
So, I mean, we're just discussing some stuff for the business and thinking through blogs, right? And
Sure.
kind of the information that we wanted to pass on to our, not even just our clients, but to people that are planning weddings.
Yeah.
Right.
Planning is hard, and I think it's important to kind of discuss everything before you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of how we got started with the whole blog thing. We like to
Yeah.
share information, and then the podcast was a good way to, like, a good medium to further share information.
A little more, I guess, direct way.
Yeah, a little more informal. We're chatty people, so I feel like that's probably why we got started on this anyway.
I like the unedited kind of side of it, like,
Yeah.
you know,
Which is, yeah.
kind
so
of the raw,
our
raw thoughts.
Yeah, before we even started this, my main point was that I actually hate listening to podcasts. I feel like I say that to you all the time.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you're like, hey, listen to this podcast. And I'm like, no, I'd rather die. But, whatever.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Anyways.
Okay, so something huge that we feel like is really important to talk about is, it started off with delegating, and what it's kind of turned into is how to make sure that you are not the one doing everything, how to give other people jobs, and how to, make people comfortable with that. So, an important part of that is, like, not being bossy, but still being able to delegate. So it's kind of a balance.
Well, you and I have worked with, I mean, there's two different kinds of, there's two ends of the spectrum of brides, right? Where one is hands-on with everything.
Yeah.
Type A, they're gonna be anxious and stressed if everything doesn't go exactly to their plan, which is totally fair.
Yeah.
This is an important day. You put a lot of work in. Like, respect, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And there's a lot of people, it's usually not brides. It's usually grooms.
Yeah, that's true.
Where it's like, fly by to see your pants. Because if you're not emotionally invested in how the day goes, then you're not likely to.
I mean, you don't care.
Yeah. If you don't care, you don't care. I mean.
Yeah. One of my favorite like memes, like wedding videos, is like how to have a good wedding, and then like the next scene is like be the groom.
Yeah.
Which is like super rude to like you or like grooms who actually like, give a shit.
Sure.
But, like, generally speaking, I would say that I did a lot of, like, the vendor booking and things like that.
Absolutely
like,
did.
you were probably a little less stressed than I was. That's just like, the way that it goes.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was drinking whiskey with my friends and...
Yeah, and I was like, hey, I gotta make sure everybody shows up.
Well, suits are a little easier to get into.
Sure, that's fair.
That's a little thing, but it's just like... That's fair. That kind of translates to the whole day. Is it being a dude at a wedding is just... Yeah. There's less pressure. Yeah. That's just because of the way that... what our wedding traditions are set up.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Anyways, so we're thinking about kind of things to talk about, and we wanted to talk about kind of distributing the responsibility, I guess. Right.
Well, before that, let's talk about like what we would do as coordinators.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I feel like that's. I mean, obviously we want to sell ourselves, but even if we're not selling ourselves, we want to sell the idea of coordinators. That's something that I think is really important, and something that I say in a lot of our like social media posts is even if you don't book us, we still recommend a coordinator because I don't want the bride and groom to have to do stuff on their day. Our whole thing is like be the guest of honor, don't be the runners of the show, basically.
Right. Well, we didn't hire a coordinator.
No, we didn't. We were like, hey, my mom's friend, can you please help us?
Yeah.
And that in itself was super helpful.
Yeah.
But through that, and to be fair, we did plan our asses off before we...
Oh, we put the work in, and it showed.
We did. And that's kind of how we got started, but that'll be a story for another day.
Having a coordinator would have been a more straightforward way to...
I wouldn't have had to create my own timeline. I wouldn't have had to check in all the vendors, things like that.
And it's also stuff that we enjoy doing, which is why we do it professionally.
Right. And so that's exactly what we do is we check in the vendors. We create your timeline. We are there for smooth transitions, for behind the scenes stuff. We want to make sure that, one of my main focuses is making sure that like guests don't see what's happening behind the scenes, because I feel like the smooth transitions, the smooth wedding. A lot of people, I think that was important at our wedding, was people didn't see what was going on behind the scenes because the person that we asked to help us did a really good job.
Sure.
But you can't always count on that. You can't always count on like just a random person doing a good job, which is why we recommend some coordinator of some sort.
Right. Well, I like the phrase behind the scenes because it really is a production.
It sure is, yeah.
I mean, if we treat it like it's a play or a musical, everybody's probably been to like a high school musical or a play, and where there's like a scene transition that goes on too long and you're just watching stage techs move furniture around for 5 minutes.
I don't want to see the person in the black t-shirt moving my chairs. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not something that I want to see.
It takes me out of the happiness of the day.
Sure. And if that's something that has to happen, I want to make sure that it's me that does it and not the bride, you know? For like, that's the biggest thing, is that like, hey, don't touch stuff. Like, let me do it for you.
Well, no matter who does it, it should be quick and it should be efficient with as few hiccups as possible.
Absolutely. And I feel like that's what we're really good at, again, selling ourselves, you know, how I like to sell us. But that's, I mean, yes, making the hiccups. We didn't want hiccups on our day. We don't want hiccups on your day. But what that leads into is like the other people that do stuff. So we're not the only ones on the day. When we first started doing this, we actually asked for a list of people that were available to help. Do you remember when we had that?
Yeah.
We don't do that so much anymore because we're better at corralling people than we used to be.
Yes.
But I think that in the beginning it was helpful because we were like, hey, cousin from the mom's side, can you please come move this chair, for example?
Many hands make light work.
Sure. Right. And the other part of it was that we didn't want to have to get on every single ladder that existed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like not that we want you to do the hard work, but also that we don't want to break our own legs. Like
sure, right. And with no help, I mean, we recently, I mean, I'm not going to say anything. We've done a wedding where I had to decorate everything. And it's like it's not feasible for one or two people to execute a wedding. That's fun.
It's sure not. Well, and that's why there's two of us to begin with. Is that there are two sides to a bridal party, which is helpful to have both of us, but also because it's hard to do it by yourself, and I feel like a lot of brides do. I feel like a lot of brides do it by themselves, and that's like it's super shitty.
Right.
So us and then other people is the two sides of that.
Right.
So
as far as us, I mean, big thing for us is keeping everybody on schedule, right?
Sure.
Would you say that's the number one
thing?
Oh
yeah, for sure. Schedule is huge.
Yeah. So we create a timeline with the clients, bridegroom, whoever, to create a baseline for how the day's going to go. And that's everything from what pictures are going to be taken when, to when your caterer is going to arrive, from to the time that you bridal party steps off for the wedding. Right.
And I think, and I've encouraged brides that I've worked with recently to share the timeline because I do a lot of the timeline stuff just because I'm a logistically driven person.
Sure.
So I've encouraged a recent bride to share that with her photographer, because photographers like to make their own timelines. Other vendors like to make their own timelines. Like the DJ's going to look at, what time are we doing the bouquet toss, things like that.
Right.
But I like to be in charge is part of it. The other part of it is that I think that having everybody on the same page is really important, which is why my new thing is, hey, share this with everybody.
Right. Well, and that's right. Like you said, every vendor is going to have their own timeline. A caterer is going to have a timeline that's as specific as we're going to put desserts out at this time.
Right.
You and I aren't going to have that information necessarily. We're going to be broad strokes. This chunk of pictures is going to be taken at this time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where the photographer's schedule is going to look like. In this chunk of pictures, first picture is going to be maternal grandparents with the bride and groom.
Right.
You know what I mean? We're not going to go into that specific.
But what that leads into is that, I mean, let your vendors do their jobs.
Yes.
Like, that's what they're there for.
Absolutely.
That's part of the delegating. That's part of letting other people do things, is that like I don't want to personally go up to the DJ and be like, it's your time to do this, because he should already know, and that's something that'll be a conversation for another day on how to book a vendor that knows how to do that.
Yeah.
Also, I don't want the bride running up to the caterer and being like, okay, we need desserts now. Like, that's not something that anybody really needs to be in charge of. If you book the right vendors, they know what they're doing.
And and unless you have a really generous friend, likely you are paying that vendor to do their job.
Oh yeah.
Like,
100%. Yeah. But that's huge. I think letting vendors, and I wouldn't say that, like, generally speaking, people get in the way of vendors, but it's easy to.
It's so easy
to.
And especially photographers.
Yeah, photographers. That, I mean, they're there to do their job, so let them.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a whole other discussion. I was going to go on a rant, but that's a whole other discussion. Photography is important. Don't piss off your photographers.
Yeah, I know. I would do a whole like series of podcasts on like.
Right.
If I hadn't gone into coordinating, I should have gone into photography.
We're not artistic people. Well, you are. Okay,
maybe.
But like we're not photographers, so we're not.
Right.
But
they're good at what they do. Let them do it. That's the whole point.
Right. Who remembers what they ate on their wedding day?
Yeah.
But you see photos. You'll have those photos for the rest of your life.
Yeah, that's huge. Anyway.
But good photographers.
Treat
them with respect.
We could go on forever on photographers. I think that I don't know how to say this nicely. Parents like to have a hand. How do I say this? Parents like to have a hand on the wedding day.
My mom can't resist herself.
Yeah.
She'll always be a hands-on person.
Yeah. So
your mother and I both were in education, teaching for a long time.
Sure.
They like the responsibility of it.
They do. They're good at leading. I think that was part of it. I think the other part of it was that, I mean, your mom had done florals, so she had seen a lot of she does wedding cakes. Like, your mom was very hands-on with the wedding because she, and I love her, and she did know a lot of stuff, but I think that's why she was hands-on, is because she wanted to offer advice.
She has a good eye for it. She's done it before.
And there were some things that I agreed with and some things that I didn't, and that's natural across the board. But all this to say, if your parents want a job, I think it's okay to give them one.
Yeah, it just needs to be a job that, for one, doesn't make or break your day.
Sure.
Right, and it needs to be something that they're going to
be good at. I think is important.
And that they want to do.
Yeah.
Because if you put your mom in charge of putting food out, and your mom's just not that kind of person, she's gonna find something else to do. She's gonna get bored quickly. Yeah. She's gonna put her fingers into other stuff.
Well, and that's what that was gonna be my example, is that at our wedding, your mom was like gung ho about the appetizer table.
Cocktail hour.
Yeah, cocktail hour. Because I mean, we had a super simple cocktail hour.
Chips and pretzels and cheese or something.
Yeah,
I don't even know because we weren't even there for it.
Well, and she made it great though. We put her in charge of that, and she went gung ho, and it was awesome. And people snacked on that stuff all night. Like we left that table out because it was beautiful, and people wanted to eat it
before dinner and after dinner.
Yeah,
and we had a later wedding, so
people got hungry.
Having food immediately was a really good.
Yeah, and then later throughout the night, people were snacking on it because people had been drinking and things like that.
Right.
But like that was super important. My mom though, her job was basically making sure I didn't lose my shit. Yeah. Like, and she loved it. Like she was like she adored being next to me on my special day. She also corralled my younger sister who was in high school and was my maid of honor. So she was like a second maid of honor.
And she's done that. She's been that person for you your whole life.
She has, so and that was important for her.
That's something that she wanted to do. She was good at. She knew it.
Yeah.
And she knew that her job was important, right?
Yeah.
And that's another part too. I think when you give everybody a job, it needs to be something that they know is important.
Yeah.
But like you and I know,
right?
It's not gonna make or break the wedding.
Sure.
Right?
Like
if the chips were in the wrong spot, that wasn't gonna.
For sure, that's a good point. See, and that's a delicate balance. Like
it is.
Because parents especially. I mean, we'll talk about other family members in a second, but like parents especially, you want to give them a job where they feel important, but you don't want to give them a job that if they like, if they F it up, that it's gonna like ruin the wedding. Right. So that's a huge thing.
Let's keep it on the. You want to keep it on the family?
Yeah, for sure.
So, and this is something I just kind of remembered is when we did our decorating, we basically put together a tote.
Yeah.
For each table, right? We had a memorial table, we had a dessert table, and we had decorations in those totes, right? And on top of the tote, we had a piece of printed computer paper with just a photo of the mock-up that we did before here at home, and a list of things that were in the box, right?
Yep.
And we made a sheet of Grandma Cindy is going to do the dessert table.
Right.
And we had our coordinator give them the tote.
Yeah.
They took the things out of the box. They put it on the table just like the picture. And then they were done.
Which is helpful for every wedding. I think it's also important to note to the listeners that we decorated our wedding in an hour and a half.
Yep.
Which we do not wish upon our worst wedding enemy. Like, it was a shit show for everybody. Everybody did a great job. But for us, the situation was, if you're in that situation, it's nice to have family members that want to help. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. And we had a lot of people that were hands-on.
Yeah, we did have a lot of people that were hands-on.
All my grandparents, our coordinators, husband, God love Jamie.
Yeah, he's awesome. All of our bridesmaids and groomsmen were super helpful. Which I think is it's kind of a side note that the people that you want in your wedding party are the people that want to help. That's who you want to have around you, the people that are going to be there for you on your day. And I think that's important.
You want reliable people as friends anyways. Mm-hmm. Sometimes your friends aren't as reliable as other friends.
That's not untrue.
Yeah. But kind of, I guess, keeping it back to the family, though, like giving your grandparents, really anybody, I guess cousins, aunts and uncles, giving anybody that does want to help. Because if you don't give them a job, they're going to annoy you and come to you and say, "What do you want me to do?"
Or us.
What do you want me to do?
They'll come to us and say, "What can we do?" And we're gonna shoo them away. Honestly, if I have a grandparent that comes to me and says, "Hey, what can I do?" I'm gonna say, "I don't have anything for you to do." And not because I don't inherently distrust them, but because I don't know their vibe. I don't know what their deal is. I don't know what they're gonna break. Like I don't want to risk my, and this is a personal thing. I don't want to risk my reputation because I gave a job to grandma.
Do I trust grandpa to put the tablecloth right side up?
Right. That being said, if that's something that you know that your grandparents, this is the grandparents for example.
Sure. Yeah.
That's something that if you know your grandparents are going to be really good at. Like you had a grandma that was a caterer. That's a super specific example, but
right. I don't think most grandmas are.
Well, no, but you know what I'm saying.
Well, most
grandmas have a lot to do with food, I feel like.
Food and sometimes feeding a lot of people,
but
I don't know. Not professionally.
Anyway, my point is if you know that this person is going to be really good at it, you have an electrician for an uncle, let him set up the lighting, stuff like that.
That can be convenient. But if you don't have anything like that, communicating with them ahead of time, saying, "Hey, grandma, if it's okay with you," especially they're going to ask you before the day, but if it's okay with you, we'd like you and grandpa to set up the decorations for the dessert table. And she's going to say, "Oh my gosh, we would love to." And we'll say, this is just how it's going to be. That way grandpa isn't going to the DJ trying to request songs.
Hey, can you play Johnny Cash for me?
4 hours before the reception. Like, keep them busy and out of the hair of everyone else.
That's so funny. I think it's funny that we honed in on grandparents.
Well,
we had very different, like, grandparental, is that a word?
Sure.
We had very different grandparents' experience at our own wedding, because I feel like which, like, God love them all.
Sure.
My Nana was like, "This is your day, you do it how you want," and I'm hands up, and I was like, "Yeah, girl." And both of your grandmas were like, "Hey, let me put my fingers in every single pie that exists."
Because that's how they are.
Yeah, in a good way. They just wanted to help.
That's where I get it. I mean, I'm helpful to a fault. Like,
yeah, that's fair.
Which I think it's a good way to put it. Is like, if I don't have something to do, I'm gonna mess something up trying to help.
Fair.
So being specific with family as far as what you want
that's the whole point. You're gonna mess something up if it's not, like, if you don't know what you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
And that's super fair. That goes for everybody.
Right.
That goes for, like, bridesmaids and groomsmen too, I feel like. I feel like putting them in charge of, like, very specific things. Obviously the best man and the maid of honor have, like, very specific duties. Like holding the rings, we've talked about that before. That's like a very specific job, very traditional job. But it doesn't happen till the ceremony. So it's important to give everybody, like, I don't really want everybody sitting around.
Every wedding ever has groomsmen on their phones for 8 hours. Just waiting.
Put them to work, I say.
Groomsmen always, I shouldn't say always, but usually are dressed way before they need to be, because they usually just wake up and get in their suits.
Yeah.
And wait till their first round of photos, and they'll by the third round of photos, they just want to get drunk. Like, that's what's happening.
And I will say this too: we did one of our very first weddings were two brides, and it was a little bit different because they were all in dresses.
Yeah.
And so they had to get.
It was a lot of hair and makeup.
It was a lot of hair and makeup, and warranted. But they all, like, it was hard to put them in charge of stuff. Not in a bad way. That's why they hired us. And they were all super gracious and would have done anything we asked.
Yeah, that was one of the better weddings we've done.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But my point is, they all had to get their hair and makeup done, and then they couldn't really, like, mess up their hair and makeup.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit different. What I'm trying to say is, groomsmen, on the other hand, like, take your suit jacket off and lift this table for me. Like, that's fine.
Yeah, we did that. I mean, I was moving tables in my suit, like,
again,
ready to go.
We only had an hour and a half to set things up. Every time I look back on it, I like wonder how we did it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
That's all.
It was a good day.
I would love to talk someday about how we pulled that off. I thought it was awesome. It was very interesting. I would love to hear someday what you did before the wedding and what I did before the wedding. I think we're probably very different.
I really didn't do a lot.
I know, and I feel like I did a lot.
I really did do a lot. Okay, so other than rings, we kind of just touched on rings.
We did, yeah.
But best man, maid of honor. So, coming from a maid of honor's perspective, have you?
I've never even been a maid of honor. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I've never been a maid of honor. I've had one.
Sure. But just as a woman, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
What do you see as the maid of honor responsibilities?
Honestly, and I think this is true kind of across the wedding board, is like the maid of honor is kind of the second coordinator. Like, I know that's a lot of pressure to put on maid of honors, but traditionally, and even in modern weddings, the maid of honor is very much in charge of, like, where's the bride? Where's the bride supposed to be? What is the bride holding? What has the bride eaten? Has the bride... You know, it's very much like you have... I mean, same for best man, I think it should be at least. You are in charge of your respective person. So for the maid of honor, I'm in charge of the bride. And I'm either helping where I need to help elsewhere, or I'm with the bride. Like, those are your two options.
Yeah. I think that this is something that we both run into. I think this is, which is interesting, is that maids of honor... Maid of honors? Maids of honor?
Maids of... I don't know.
They're
matrons of honor if they're married.
If they're married, right. Right.
Please.
Whatever they are. We've run into a lot of maids of honor who feel that their primary responsibility is to be an advocate for the bride, which...
I don't think that's necessarily untrue.
But...
Yes. Yeah.
But I think that it's been... We've both seen it being taken to an extreme where the maid of honor
is almost mean.
Sometimes can be mean. It steps on gets unfriendly with photographers and hair and makeup.
Maids of honor have been unfriendly with me. Like,
sure.
I mean,
yeah,
we've talked about that. Like, advocating for the bride, yes, but in a way where you're stepping on toes, and you. Yeah. I've also seen it where, and this was the bridesmaids. This is mostly the bride being super over the top, was the bridesmaids felt like they needed to advocate for the bride so much that they couldn't advocate for themselves.
Sure.
And I think that's an important balance as a bride, is to be gracious throughout your day. Yes, it's stressful. Yes, you want it perfect for you, and you are the guest of honor, but I think that it's important that your bridesmaids also feel heard and welcomed.
Sure. Yeah. Likely they have spent money on something, probably a dress, right? I mean, they're there for a reason. Yeah. They want to support you. Same for groomsmen. They paid for a tux rental, like, you know.
Well, and that being said,
they've got skin in the game, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, back to giving them jobs, I think that it's hard to say that's a way to, like, keep them involved. That's not really the goal. But I don't know. I think that it's okay to give your bridesmaids jobs. Like, that's okay.
Right. And if you feel that your job is to be an advocate, I would say pick your battles.
Sure.
When it comes to...
I was going to say watch your tone.
Well, that's it's a good way to put it too. But be, you know... I don't know.
I know it's so hard not to.
I want to tread
not to like shit on people that we've worked with.
I want to tread so lightly. These days just get so stressful, and everyone's so high strung. Not just bridesmaids or brides. Sure. You know, everyone is high strung. So, pick your battles is what I'm going to stick with.
Yeah, that's fair.
This is what I'm going to stick with.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. If I was to expand on it, I'm talking about best men for a second.
Yeah.
Totally agree. I mean, best men don't have to hold dresses for the groom to pee, but you know,
that's huge.
But being the point man, I guess, to take care of things when they need to be taken care of. You know,
reliability.
Being reliable.
Yeah, reliability.
Being aware, by the way. If you notice that something is going wrong, that could be like let's be as specific as like the aisle runners crooked.
Taking initiative. You're getting at taking initiative.
Yeah, don't let the groom be the first one to notice things that are going wrong, because their job's to get married.
That goes for the bride too, and I think that's huge for the bride. Is the bride doesn't want to see, because brides usually have a bigger, a little bit more skin in the game.
Sure.
Than like
almost universally.
Yeah, right. Almost universally. And I think that making sure the bride isn't the first to notice when things go wrong. Well, and that comes back to us as well. That's kind of our job too.
Right.
But it's nice to have other people aware. And so, if you're invited to be in a bridal party or you're invited to be the maid of honor or best man, I think that it's important to know what you signed up for.
Yeah.
You should not expect to be the center of attention. You should expect to have some jobs. Like, I think that's appropriate.
Right. It's a big responsibility.
Yeah.
Even best men have a lot of responsibilities.
Sure.
I'm going to be a best man twice this year.
I think most of their responsibilities come before the wedding.
Yeah, a lot of them too.
Yeah.
And that's that preparation part of it.
Sure.
I mean, so a lot, like my best man, I believe my best man did. Did he book the Airbnb for our site?
I think he did, yeah.
So booking lodging if you're choosing to stay together as like a groom side of the bridal party thing. We all got ready at an Airbnb, spent a couple nights. He planned bachelor party activities.
Sure.
That were a couple days before.
That comes back to like giving them jobs. I think that it's appropriate. Like, if you have a best man that you trust, it's okay to say, "Hey, would you like?" For us, it would have been, "I'll chip in, but can you help book it?"
Sure.
I think, and either way, how you decide to split fees and paying for things ahead of time is always a conversation to have. But in regards to who's actually going to do it, who's going to book it, who's going to make it happen, I think it's okay to ask even your groomsmen. Other people in the party, your maid of honor and best man especially, it's okay to say, "Here's what I think I want to do. Can you help facilitate that?"
Yeah. As a best man now, grooms shouldn't have to bug guys about paying for their tux rentals or paying for.
That's a job to give to your best man for sure.
Yeah, that's a big one.
And that's not even a job on the day. That's a job like before the day,
months ahead.
Yeah, where you're like, "Hey, the groom is literally planning a wedding. Can you please chip in for the Airbnb that we're all going to stay in?"
I'm about to check in with everybody and say, "Hey, who's got their tuxes? Make sure that it's fitted. Make sure that you check everything correctly."
Sure.
Also, the suits we got for this wedding, the pants aren't hemmed. Like, you have to hem the pants yourself. So, like, take them somewhere. If you need help finding out how to do that or who to take it to, let me know.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Like, stuff ahead of time.
Yeah,
that's
an important job.
Part of being proactive.
So anyway, giving people jobs is super important because we don't want the bride and groom to have to do it all, is our whole point of this whole thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like we've covered all of our bases. Like, I'm running out of things to say about it.
Yeah, I guess use this as a guide to take some stress off, because the big question, and I think this is part of why we got into coordinating, is like, the big question for brides and grooms is like, you come up with this timeline. You have all these things and activities that you want to happen on the day, and then you look at this long list and you think, who the hell is going to do all this?
How do
stuff?
I make this happen?
Because I can't do this. I'm going to be busy getting married. I'm going to be in heels all day. How am I going to run around?
Well, and we hope that's what you think. We don't. I hope you don't. I don't want brides and grooms to think I can do this all myself. Like, you probably could, but it would suck. Like, that's kind of my point, is like, I don't want you to do it all yourself because I don't want it to suck. That's my point.
Yeah, and you have a lot of people standing around with hands in their pockets.
And so to prevent that, you delegate.
Yeah. And I would say too, for people that have a hard time letting go of control, it's okay to invite people into your space for this day, especially for this day. Yeah. Because a lot of families, especially if you come from a tight-knit family, weddings are a family affair. Like, it's absolutely a whole thing. There's a reason you invited all these cousins you haven't seen in years, and like.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, we didn't, but but some people do.
Some people do, not us, but some people.
Some people do. I mean, we kept it pretty tight, but some people have 400-person weddings, and half of the guest list is parents' friends who they've never met ever. Sure. But it's
when you really put your parents in charge of stuff.
Really, yeah.
If all your friends are coming, you're gonna do shit. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no kidding. So invite people in and help people. Let people help you. And,
absolutely.
And that'll make your day that much better, more memorable. It's a team effort.
Yeah, very special. Make it very special.
Be a guest at your own wedding. That's what we'll say every time. I feel like we should sign off every podcast with that.
Be a guest at your own wedding.
Be a guest at your own wedding. If you didn't enjoy the day, then what was all that work for?
Yep, absolutely, I agree. Be a guest at your own wedding.
And hire a coordinator, because that's very important. And
that's what we're really signing
off
with.
We can help you make your day, easier.
Yeah.
So
hire a coordinator. The end.
And we'll put your family to work.
Yeah. Cheers.
So, anyways, happy wedding planning, and
we'll see you soon.
See you soon.